October 20th, 1967, me and Roger were riding up the creek in Bluff Creek, and we looked to past the root ball to our left, and up stood this creature. Now, you all know the story from here, but this is the confession. So, when I chased this creature up the bowling alley just after the sandbar there, she kind of put her two hands on this log and started to bend over and shake her rear end there profusely, and I saw those Bigfoot cheeks clap. And I looked back, and Roger, he was doing some relaxed dance, and he said, "Now everybody in the club getting tipsy." I'm not sure what that meant. And, well, all I thought was, they really are real. They really do exist. So that's the confession, and Russell Accord can suck my...
Yeah, well, a lot of folks did call him Too Good, but that wasn't because he was sporting two pistols. That was because he had a dick that was so big, it was longer than the barrel on that Walker Colt that he carried.
I'm here to do one thing, is to bring one of these creatures back. I don't want to talk right now. You just keep the camera off right now, okay? I said I don't want to talk. You got it? Joan, give me a Snapple.
Well, we are back for another season. Welcome, everybody, to season 11 of the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. Season 11 is going to be the season of Bigfoot Campfire Stories live. We're going to do a few of some of our favorites, as well as have all new editions of the Bigfoot Campfire Stories. And I have a bunch of them ready to go. So let me take a look here and kind of give you a little bit of a rundown of the things that we'll be looking for in the very near future. Well, okay. That's here we are. With titles such as Ape Canyon, The Freeman Incident, Albert Ostman, The Incident at Boggy Creek, The Honey Island Monster, The Bowman Bigfoot Stories, The Story of the Sierra Kills, The Jacobs Creature, The Mongolian Monster, The Ocala Skunk Ape, and The Ohio Grassman. So that's what we'll be looking for here for the next few editions over the next few months of the Squatchers Lounge podcast, season of Bigfoot Campfire Stories live. That's right. I've been toying with the idea for a couple of seasons, and the time has just come. I've been doing a lot of creative work over on Twitch TV at night. We're running a look at modern paganism and how it correlates to Christianity. So we can definitely, if you're interested in that, it's Jeffrey the Seer at twitch.tv is where I'm at. And by all means, stop by. If it's for you, great. Give it a follow. If it's not, by all means, it's okay. The Squatchers Lounge podcast is going to remain right here on YouTube, unfortunately. So glad that everybody has shown up here this week. Hello, hello. I do exist. We been dealing with a lot of the medical stuff the last couple of weeks, and it hasn't been fun. And I still don't have any answers, but modern medicine in a Medicare or in medical for all, in healthcare for all type of situation is horrible. At its very freaking root, it is horrible. People ask me how I'm doing with my cancer, and I got to tell them, I got to be honest with you, I don't know. I have no idea. They cut some pieces out of me, but everybody dropped the ball and then broomed me through the holidays. So the scan I was supposed to have at 3 months, I didn't get. and now we're pushing 6 months, and they haven't scheduled that thing either. So a little bit on the mind, shall we say, when it comes to what's going on with the old Reverend's health. But we're trying. We are absolutely trying to keep ourselves motivated and going. So, you know, I feel all right. I don't feel like I used to. That's the change. But, you know, I don't know. Something, I left something on the table the last time they cut me open, and I don't know what it was. But every time they put me out, I just seem to come back just a little different than I did when they put me under. So there's that on my mind as well. There's a bunch of weird stuff going on in the old Reverend's life, but you know what? It is not that big a deal. Well, basically, the way we'll run these Bigfoot campfire stories is I'll probably read about halfway through the story. I'll tell halfway through the story, and we'll take a short break to say hello in the chat room to all of our favorites that are hanging out with us. And then after the story is over, you know, I can reveal where the relation of that story came from, and the information behind it, and answer any questions that there might be generated by it. So this is going to be one of those nights when you can just sit back, relax, chat in the chat room with everybody, and take a listen to a Bigfoot campfire story live. Let's see here. This one dates back to a 2016 Bigfoot campfire story. Bigfoot attacks family in Arizona. Boy Scout still missing. That's right, season 2 of the Bigfoot campfire stories. The original story was found roughly September of 2009. And it goes, let me wet the old whistle here. I'm always reminded of this story, the tale of poor Junior Spade and his father Bill, while in the wilds of the Mogollon Rim, building a log cabin. Fate filled everyone's events, and it was fate that filled the events that took place that day. Well, it was the spring of 1976. My son Junior and I were headed up towards Turkey Springs, Arizona, where I had inherited a small piece of land adjacent to the National Forest. Junior had just turned 12 and was quite the woodsman himself already. Being a Boy Scout, sure honed his skills in the wild. Well, I'd bet he could do a solo week alone packing trip with little worry from anyone but me, of course. They had taught him very well. We had decided, since his mother had passed, we would take this opportunity to start fresh and make a new home in a log cabin life. Sure sounded like the right kind for us. Well, I had ordered a log cabin kit to be dropped at the site, and all we were going to have to do was fell the logs on site and put it together. It could make for an adventure that we'll never forget, just the type of distraction we'd need to start healing. Well, I had paid a couple of the locals to clear a tract of land and stack the trees on one side of the lot for easy pickings, as well as to clear a nice path from the city road to the building lot some 3/4 of a mile into the cut. Well, when we arrived, I was pleased to see that the workers had thought much like me and cut a winding path, leaving the best of the trees standing and saving all of the old growth. I couldn't cut a better path myself. It was nearly perfect. When we arrived at the clear site for the cabin, the men had a wonderful feeling for the land, and again only cleared out what space was needed to level the earth for the cabin, and left all of the old growth around the plot. When the forest heals from our little invasion, the scenery should be amazing, as if our little cabin belonged and wanted to be built right where they placed the foundation. Well, Junior and I had packed the van with just about everything we had left that we wanted to keep, including our temporary living quarters, an old cabin cowboy tent. It'll keep us dry and warm for the next few months as we get the cabin up and tight from the elements. Junior being 12 was a big help, but I still needed some adult strength to help out. So I hired a young man named Jake from the nearby town to make an extra back for the time being, and while we were waiting for his arrival tomorrow. For now, Junior and I would work on setting up the cowboy camp and getting settled in for the night. A change of life is exactly what we wanted, and it looks like that's what we got. Well, the tent went up without much effort. I was surprised. In fact, I had figured on hours of wrestling with the stupid thing and having the lines missing. But in fact, 45 minutes later, we were loading in the wood stove and running the chimney out the top of the tent. It was amazingly simple. No wonder that was how they did it for all those years. Well, we had emptied all the gear from the van into the tent, and it really began to take shape. A sitting area up front near the stove and a sleeping area in the back, with cots all foamy, all comfy set up. Tomorrow we'll build a latrine, and all shall be right with the camp once more. Junior was so tired from the day, he was already falling asleep at the round dinner table, so I helped him off to his bunk and got him off to sleep. I was a bit wiped out myself, so I knew it wouldn't be long before I too was down for the count, so I grabbed my flashlight for an after-dark check of the woods to be sure no bears were about. Well, just as I had stepped out of the tent, I thought I saw a black figure run off in the dark, but it had made no sound, so I really couldn't tell what it was. That part of the lot hadn't been plowed, and the land was quite dry at the moment, so it didn't leave any tracks to follow either. But I figured it would have taken a few nights of us being here before the local wildlife would get used to it and move on to another location. I thought no more on it for the night, and I went back to the tent closed and settled in for some well-deserved sleep as the real work starts tomorrow. It wasn't until very early in the morning that I was awakened by Junior. He said he had been out to pee, and there was a strange man watching him from the woods. He couldn't see him very good, but his flashlight kept making the eyes shine at him. So I grabbed my pistol and the flashlight, and we went to look. Well, as expected, we found no one or no thing. We searched around for nearly a half an hour, and we agreed maybe it was an owl in a tree, and he had just been mistaken. Strange place syndrome might have been what it was, and we went back to sleep. Jake had arrived sometime early in the morning. As when I got up and started the coffee, I heard him call out to us in the tent, "Good morning. I didn't want to wake you," from a strange voice in camp. I swung open the tent flap and invited Jake in for a cup of joe to get the day started. I had noticed he was entering that he had brought the outhouse supplies with him from town that I had paid for and ready for pickup at the supply house. He was so eager to get to work that he had unloaded the wood in the exact right place before he had awoken us, just to put his best foot forward. It seemed like he was a man that we could learn to trust. Well, for the next couple of weeks, work went on uninterrupted, and as we thought, after the first couple of nights, the weirdness of the new land had gone away, and the animals had accepted our intrusion into their forest and stopped wandering near the tent at night. Jake and I had made some real progress on the cabin. The walls were up and the windows and doors framed in. We were on the lookout for just the right trees to fell for the roof, and in just a few more weeks, we would be all done. I had Junior do a set of tasks each day, like bring clean water from the creek and put lye on the piling on the outhouse, mostly things he could handle on his own for half the day, and the other half of the day he was free to wander the game trails and locate the area where later would be treehouse location of his very own. Well, it was a fantastic as each day the sun would go down and Junior would return with new information about the wild food and new locations he had found and visited. For a little while now, he had been telling us about the bear footprints he'd been finding around the area. Well, Jake went on to tell us about the Native Americans in the area still roamed the national forest lands, and they would not wear shoes many times. The tracks may be theirs, but other stories told of a Mongol monster, a Bigfoot, if you will, that wanders the rim territories and does bad things when they cross human paths, so that always be vigilant and aware of where he was and how far from home he had wandered. I chalked it up to old Indian stories to keep the young ones in camp at night, and keep people from wandering off alone. Well, I think that's a very good place to take a quick break. Oh, say hello to everybody out yonder. Mark my bookmark here. Let's see who is hanging out with us in the chat tonight. We've got Rod Dupree and Shane Barber. Hello. Dean Cooper. Shane Barber. Hey, man. Aaron and Mary Duncan, of course, they're hanging out with us. And then Rod Dupree, you know, he's always in the place to be, as well as Chip. Hello, Chip. Glad you're with us, buddy. Kevin K208 and Collier Wilmus. Hello, Collier. Let's see here. Ken Wright. Hello, Ken. Ken the Viking. If you haven't checked out the Twitch feed, man, please. I mean, you know, by all means, check it out at least once. Let's see here. Joan, get me a Snapple. That's right. Lance Windsor's in the house. Hello, Lance. Glad you're here, buddy. David Lee's checking in. There we are. Killing Time. Hey, glad Killing Time's in the house as well. Shane, man. There we go. All right. Those are the people hanging out with us live tonight at the moment, at least those that are chatting. I'm sure there's some others that are hanging out as well. Hello to you. If you haven't said hi to me, I don't know to say hi to you. So that's how we do that. All right. If I missed your name, by all means, by all means, speak up, because I will be glad to say hello to you. I didn't want to miss you on purpose. The dynamics of having a house with teenage children in it again is something I haven't had for a minute. All right. So we'll put our little picture in here. I don't even know where this picture came tonight. Sasquatch Chewbacca, what's up? Yeah, I'm not even. I mean, that almost looks like the Dickie Ryder Texas Bigfoot suit, but I don't think it is. I think this is at a display somewhere. Anyhow, let's get back to old Junior and Bill Spade and find out just what happens in the rest of this story. Well, it wasn't until about a week later when Junior started talking about something following him home. He could never get a glimpse of it, whatever it was, but it always seemed to be there. And he could hear a low whistle from just out of sight in the woodline. I suggested Junior stay in camp for a few days, as if it was a cat following him. It was thinking about food, and a cougar attack would be about the last thing anyone would want, and everyone agreed. Now, we all kind of stayed near the camp for the next few days. It was about 5 days when they first noticed the barefoot tracks in camp. Jake had found where someone had walked right into camp and right up to the tent. The weird part was there were no tracks leading away. It was as if whoever it was had gone into the tent and not come out. The fact that these bare footprints were huge kind of got lost for a moment. As Junior bent down and laid his hand next to one, we all realized that there was no way this could have been a man. We searched the tent, and of course, no one was there. Nothing had been disturbed. It just seemed to have had vanished, at least for the time being. The weather had been moving in on us, and being summer now, the rains could set in for a day or two before they lift, and it had done this to us just a couple of times now. Jake had decided to head into town for a couple of days and check on his place, then pick up supplies when the weather broke and rejoin us here at camp to get the rest of the roof cut and in place. So it was just me and Junior here now to wait the weather out. We both agreed that we wouldn't go anywhere alone since the visitor came to camp. It was just about dusk when Junior proclaimed that he had to visit Browntown, so off he went out of the tent. The outhouse was just 20 yards from the camp, so he didn't feel the need for me to hold his hand this time. So I just left the tent flap open so I could see it, and we left it that way. He sprinted like an Olympian to the outhouse. It was inside before he could even barely get wet. A few minutes had passed, and the outhouse door flew open, and out popped the lighter Junior, who then promptly closed the door and started his sprint back to the tent. But to my horror, he never made it. I thought it was some kind of a movie playing out in front of my eyes, but a giant hairy creature emerged from the woodline and intercepted Junior not 5 yards into his run towards the tent. It picked him up off of his feet and tore off in a flash into the woods with my boy clutched in its hairy arms, and all I could hear was Junior screaming off in the distance. It took me a few moments to realize that it was me screaming in horror at what had just happened. I quickly came to my senses, threw on my poncho, grabbed the shotgun, slid on my boots, and ran off in the direction that the creature had run. There were deep tracks plowing through the soaked ground, even more heavy now with my boy in its grasp. I could only imagine Junior kicking and clawing and punching at the creature in an effort to get it to let go. It couldn't keep him held for long. It would end up hurting him. So I knew I had little time. I followed the tracks as fast as I could, but as they covered twice the ground and twice as fast as I could, but I could just not give up. It seemed like forever, my worst thoughts running through my mind and what could be happening to my boy. Then I heard him scream, "Dad, help me!" And I ran in that direction just as fast as I could manage. Finally, as I came into a very small clearing, there was a dense part of the woods. There on the ground lay Junior, a little worse for wear, but alive. I ran towards him, but I only got a few feet when a very large hair-covered monster stepped out of the trees between us. It appeared to be female, as there were breasts present, barren of hair. She had wide hips like a woman of many births may have. 2-inch long hair that got longer to the wrists and to the ankle covered her body, except for the palms, breast, face, and feet, was a very reddish dark fur. She was taking possession of my boy, and I had no choice but to aim and fire my shotgun to regain control. I blasted the creature at point-blank range, and she charged at me, knocking me to the ground and knocking away my shotgun clear out of sight and unreachable. She stood over me, bleeding from the chest where the bird shot had broken open the skin very deeply, but not enough to kill her. Junior screamed out again, and she turned to look his way. I pulled out my fixed-blade knife from my sheath, and I stabbed it into her foot, cutting 2 of her smallest toes from her right foot. She screamed out in terror and reached down and snatched me by the face. The very last thing I remember was seeing her walk over to Junior, stomping on his head with her bloody foot, picking him up and then walking away, just as the warm embrace of unconsciousness began to wash over me. They say it was Jake that found me in the woods the next day. He had found the scene at the camp and followed the tracks and the trail to discover me laying in a pool of my own blood, barely alive. Jake said that he couldn't believe that I was still breathing and had survived such an attack, seeing as how when he found me, my face was actually hanging on a branch above my body. According to the story of the police and the fire rescue, wildlife department, and everyone else, you would think that such a story of poor Junior, his father's injuries were so bad, the man will never again have a normal life. They said that after he healed, he went back and finished his cabin in the woods, and still to this day searches the forest for the 3-toed Mongyon monster and his poor missing son, Junior. And that is the tale of Junior and Bill Spade. Actually revealed where we got that particular story from, and I guess it's probably about time. Originally, the email came in was, "Dear Sir, now being a veteran of the Camp Geronimo from 1968 to 1971, I read with interest the story of the Mongyon monster. However, there were some things that I was curious about. In the telling of the Monkey Monster stories during those days, there was a young victim named Junior Spade. The Boy Scout version made claim to Junior and his father Bill homesteading near the Turkey Springs. The monster either abducted and killed young Junior, depending on which older scout told the story, and Bill made a valiant effort, an attempt to fight the creature with an axe, taking 2 toes from the monster's right foot or left foot, depending on which of the older scouts made the bogus footprint in the dirt next to the mess hall. That's right. The Mongol monster was then described as a nickname of Old Three Toes. The story went on to describe old Bill Spade still wandering the woods near Turkey Springs, looking for his young son and snatching young Boy Scouts who looked like young Junior, the description of which usually matched that of the smallest, most easily frightened boy present, then killing the young camper when it became clear that it was not his son. Is this a bending of 2 tails? Is it a Boy Scout BS? Am I losing my mind and perhaps in the need of a checkup? Also, the information on the White Tanks monster would be of interest. Thanks so much, Stuart Smith. So there you go. The story was originally told by Boy Scouts in Camp Geronimo about the story of Old Three Toes, and your old pal here, the Reverend Two Gun Kelley. That's right. Embellished it enough to come through with the story of Bill and Junior Spade. Fun, fun, fun. I think we're going to get close to wrapping this up. If we don't have any questions about this week's story, by all means, please let me know. I know they're seeming like they're a little bit shorter this year, but there will be longer ones and there will be shorter ones. So that's going to do my best to be here each week for you. Bella didn't make it tonight. Hello, Bella. You'll check in on this. And Emma from the UK, she'll be listening to it later. Dean, he'll listen to it later as well. He was definitely calling in the Sandman early tonight. So I'll start bringing the quasies back in, and we'll run some Bigfoot, or we'll still run some camping tips for stupids. But next Wednesday, come back and join us, and I will be bringing a brand new Bigfoot campfire story to the channel next week. So until then, I love you all. May the healing light grace you, and I will send you as much energy as I possibly can. And may the Squatch be with you.